has, because he has money coming in from places that he didn't want you to know, and because he has money going out that is not only undercutting the idea of his wealth, but raises significant questions about who would lend him this money. Why would it be personally guaranteed? Very unusual in high net worth situations like his own with all these different corporate entities. Why would he personally guarantee? Why would he have to? Who's it to? National security issues, ideas of his policies, what his personal conflicts are. We have John Bolton tonight, former ambassador, head of national security. He didn't know about these loans. Can you imagine that? You'll hear that conversation for yourself. Now, I want to tell you that let's set the stage with some of the sound, okay? Everything I'm about to play for you, we now know was BS.
I'm really rich. I built a great company, one of the best companies. I built a great company.
No, he built a great brand, not a company in terms of something that makes something, that sells things and takes things in and is managed and grows and has staff and has underlying equity asset value. What does that mean? Something you can borrow against. Because if he were such a great businessman, Donald Trump would not have to be personally on the hook for $421 million. Personally. Okay? When's it due? It starts coming due in the next 4 years. Personally liable. His great company, what does that mean? Whoever was lending him the money didn't think he had a great enough company to use it as collateral. Think about that. Now, you've grown accustomed to politicians selling you a fairy tale. I get it. And I get why you don't want politicians telling you that Donald Trump is a lying, no good Nick, because you don't think they are either. But this is about the facts. And Donald Trump has been lying to you in ways that you'll see matter more than we would have expected. And he's been doing it for almost a decade.
I paid a lot of tax. And, look, I don't mind. I'm proud to pay it. If I owe it, I pay it.
Not true. In fact, one of the few honest things that he has said was when he didn't know he was being recorded. Listen to this.
And when you're a star, they let you do it. You can do anything.
Donald Trump's celebrity pays really well. He makes a ton of money. Now, he may think that entitles him to an entirely different set of rules because that's how he's been playing. And this is not, I know you've heard a lot today and yesterday, and you'll hear tomorrow and other places tonight. I can't believe he doesn't pay any taxes. We all know these rich people game the system with their fancy accountants. You pay the accountant so that he or she signs the return so you can get away with whatever they're putting it there. We know that. We all know that nobody wants to pay any more taxes than they absolutely have to. Why? Well, you need your money, and you don't trust where it's going and how they're going to use it. But this isn't that. This isn't just another rich guy working the system. He is in control of that same system. He was hired to blow up that system, to drain the swamp, to give you more leverage. What has he done? He has ensured the system continues and has even bigger loopholes in it, not for people like you, people like him.
Because of our tax cuts, you can keep more of your hard-earned money.
It's not true. He has helped mostly people like him. If you work for a living, you've likely seen your tax bill go up. These are the numbers, and I know they can slice it a million different ways. Yes, some people paid less, but it was very specific. It was not a middle-class tax cut. It was called that, but it wasn't. It was 17 cents of every dollar, and that really varies depending on how much you make and where you live. His policies make it harder for you to buy a house, but better for people like him to build them. The most powerful man on the planet urgently needs to make money. His push to lift life-saving restrictions in the spring look a whole lot different when you realize his revenue is tied to things like golf courses, hotels, real estate, everything that's suffering in the pandemic. So what we don't know may be the biggest threat. Absolutely one to our national security. Who lent him the money? Because it's personally guaranteed. He is on the hook. There is zero chance that he cannot care about it, and it is a tremendous sum of money. $421 million. All right? That's real money. You don't pay a percentage, that's money they're looking for. Now, remember, before the political need for silence, his son told a reporter something in 2014. Quote, "We have all the funding we need out of Russia." This level of outstanding debt would be reason enough to deny security clearances to any government worker. Okay? You would not get one if you had personal loan guarantees on the hook, let alone coming from abroad. Now, what irony. How sickening is it that it doesn't apply to the person we should care about this most, the commander-in-chief? That much power placed in the hands of one man is why another Republican president said this.
People have got to know whether or not their president is a crook. Well, I'm not a crook.
Infamous words, right? It had nothing to do with Watergate, but rather the fact that Nixon was dramatically underpaying his income taxes. So here's where we are. I'm telling you, the people around this president did not know what came out in his taxes. I've been scrubbing it. A lot of other pros have been scrubbing it. They didn't know. The people keeping us safe have no idea who he owes and how much. Now let's get three men in here who are intimately familiar with why Trump does his taxes this way, right? A former attorney of his, Mitchell Zachary, okay? Someone who I have been working on this for 15 years for this moment to come out. Tim O'Brien, then with the New York Times, obviously with Bloomberg. You remember him from the Bloomberg campaign. He's been on MSNBC, and he's here with me tonight. He literally was a mentor of mine in understanding the structures that we were trying to identify. And then we bring in the professor, David K. Johnston, to help understand what this means and what it should mean. Thank you, each and all. Tim, I start with you. For a long time, now you had some access, David had some access also, but you always wanted more to come out so people could understand what you understand without you violating any of the rules of litigation that revealed the tax records to you during your litigation against the then citizen Donald Trump with the New York Times. What jumps out for you in this chunk of stuff that the New York Times processed?
I think two broad issues, Chris. The first one is that Donald Trump embodies a national security threat. He's heavily indebted. He owns businesses that are in the most vulnerable sectors of the economy right now that are getting ravaged by the coronavirus pandemic. Real estate, both commercial and residential, travel and leisure. And he has debts coming due. And Donald Trump, when he's cornered with debts, is usually acts like a caged animal. He only has two approaches to this. He either sells his assets to get a handle on the debt, and I think he has significantly more debt than the New York Times has disclosed. I think he's got north of $1 billion. He either sells assets or he goes for a loan.
Why do you think he's got that much, Tim? Just so people understand.
I know it's publicly documented. It's public records on mortgages he's got, Chris. It's not speculation. I think there's a certain portion of that comes due sooner that is probably putting more pressure on him, but it's certainly north of $1 billion. I think that's indisputable.
So, Mitch, hold on. Let's bring Mitch in here for a second. Thanks, Tim. But we'll keep rolling it around. Don't worry. We got a lot to talk about. We got a lot of time. Mitch, you did his taxes. You started out back in the 80s. So nobody's going to tell you anything about his practices and his predilections. But $421 million personally guaranteed after all the money he's had come in and all the different businesses he's been able to put together. Are you surprised by that number?
Oh, of course not. You know, when I worked on it, he was going through terrible times. The divorce with Ivana, the Taj Mahal debacle, and he actually took down some major banks. I don't know if anybody remembers Bankers Trust, but he had a $100 million unsecured line of credit with them. He paid 3/4 of a point as a fee, and the guys at Bankers Trust were thrilled. Except he paid 1 month's interest and then defaulted. Well, lo and behold, Deutsche Bank had to take over Bankers Trust. So it doesn't surprise me one bit. This is how he lived in the past.
Now he'll say,
Mitch,
he'll say, Yeah, I owe $400 million. Yeah, that's how you do business, is you borrow money and then you pay it back. I'm worth billions and billions in assets. I can pay this. They don't know what they're talking about.
Well, listen, first of all, I want to comment on what was said before. Personal tax returns do not reveal the amount of personal debt, okay? So I'm not sure how the New York Times came up with that number, but I agree that it's probably much higher.
Explain that to me. Assume I know nothing about taxes.
Well, on an individual tax return, all you talk about is income and expenses, not assets and liabilities. On a corporate return, you would have that.
Right.
But if this debt is personal, then it won't be reflected in any way on his tax return. So I'm not sure how the New York Times came up with that number.
Where would it be? Go ahead, Tim. Jump in.
It's in his personal financial disclosures. These are government filings. There's at least $300 million disclosed in there. We've known that for 2.5 years.
All right, so let's bring the professor in here on this. I got to tell you, you guys are going to hear from John Bolton later in the show. I had to tape him before the show because time constraints, and I really wanted him. David, can you believe that no one in our national security apparatus, allegedly, knew that he had this kind of money that he owed personally to lenders that may include foreign lenders?
Well, I'm not sure why they necessarily would ask, but I do want to emphasize that Tim is exactly right here, that we have other records on Donald's debt, and it's much more likely in the neighborhood of $1 billion. If Donald was solid, he wouldn't be signing personal notes to secure that debt. He would be pledging the assets. And we shouldn't make the assumption that Donald Trump's enormous reporting are actual losses. Donald has a history of fabricating tax deductions. And if some of the losses he took are fabricated, it raises another national security question. Where did the money go?
And just to be clear, Mitchell Zachary has said before that this is something that can happen, and he knows New York is looking at it. He was never a part of it, he says, but if that's what he was doing, he could be in real trouble. So